They found my brother in Hollow Creek Lake 12 years too late. Back in 1980, they said Devon drowned after prom night, case closed, nothing to see. But I never bought that story. Every May 14th, I'd take my old rowboat out to the same dark water, just me, my line, and the ghosts. This year, the lake finally gave him back, chained, broken, still wearing that gold day around his neck. They called it an accident then, but accidents don't wear cinder blocks. Now I'm gonna find out who did this and make sure Hollow Creek never sleeps easy again. They found my brother in Hollow Creek Lake 12 years too late. I remember that morning clear as daylight, though the sun hadn't even burned the mist off the water yet. The air was thick, sweet with the smell of pine and diesel from the old outboard motor. I'd been coming out here every May 14th since 1980, ever since the night Devon disappeared. Folks said I was stuck in the past, chasing ghosts that didn't want to be found. Maybe they were right. But the thing about ghosts is, they don't haunt you. If you leave them alone, they haunt you. Because they're still waiting for you to listen. The lake was glass, still that morning, flat enough to see my own reflection ripple when I cast the line. I used to fish with Devon right here when we were kids, sitting on a busted milk crate, passing a bottle of orange soda back and forth, pretending we owned the world. He'd laugh every time I caught a branch instead of a bass, call me city hands. He had that big, easy grin, the kind that made teachers forgive him and girls chase him. Even after he made the varsity team, after the scouts came to watch him play, he never stopped being my kid brother. The last night I saw him, he was in that cheap tux, nervous as hell about prom, spinning the car keys around his finger like he owned time itself. Mama said he looked like a movie star. Then he drove off and never came back. People talked plenty afterward. Some said he'd run off with that girl, Serena, the preacher's daughter. Others whispered he'd been mixed up in trouble, gambling, maybe drugs. When they found his Chevy by the water, keys still in the ignition, sheriff called it open and shot. Said the boy probably couldn't live with the pressure. Back then, a black kid in Mississippi who disappeared was just another name on a clipboard. The town moved on. Mama didn't. She sat by the window for years, waiting for headlights that never came. When she passed, I promised her I'd keep looking. So every year, I came back to this same cursed lake. I'd fish, drink a beer, talk to him like he was sitting beside me. Some years I'd drop flowers in the water, other years just silence. That morning in '92 felt different though. The sky was gray and heavy, like it knew something was about to give. The birds weren't even singing, just that slow hum of insects, and the creak of my oars slicing through the water. I cast once, twice, nothing. Then, on the third throw, the line jerked hard, almost yanking the rod from my hands. At first, I thought I'd snag at a log, the reel whined, metal grinding under the strain. Whatever it was heavy, heavier than any fish I'd ever caught. My buddy Leon, who came along that day, leaned over and said, "Man, you hooked the damn devil." I laughed, but the sound caught in my throat when the line started moving, slow but sure, like something alive down there. It took us 5 minutes to drag it up, 5 minutes that felt like an hour. The water broke in a rush of bubbles, and what came out wasn't a fish. It was a shape wrapped in rusted chain, pieces of bone showing through the tattered remains of jeans, and a Letterman jacket. The skull tilted toward me, hollow sockets staring right through my soul. Around the neck hung a thin gold chain, the kind you buy cheap on payday, but wear like it's worth the world. The pendant, a single letter, D, still glinted through the grime. The air left my lungs, my knees almost gave out. Leon started cussing, fumbling for his phone to call the sheriff, but I couldn't move. I just kept staring at that chain. Mama had given it to Devon for his 18th birthday. I remember because I was the one who picked it up from the pawnshop for her. The clerk told me, "Gold holds memories, son. It never forgets who it belonged to." Turns out he was right. That chain remembered my brother when nobody else did. The deputies showed up half an hour later, lights flashing across the water like lightning. They made us wait on shore while they pulled the remains in. The sheriff, same man from back then but grayer, older, came up and said, "Well, looks like you found your brother after all." No apology, no shock, just business. He told me they'd run forensics, but we both knew who it was. You could feel it, that hush over the crowd, that shared knowing. Hollow Creek had been keeping a secret for 12 damn years, and now the lake had finally decided to confess. They asked me questions, wrote notes in their little pads, like maybe I dragged those bones up myself. I could see it in their eyes, the same suspicion they'd had since day one. A black man too close to a mystery always looks guilty in Mississippi. I told them I just came to fish, same as every year, but they kept pushing, why today, why this spot, why now? I said because I never stopped believing he was down there. The deputy gave me a look like faith was a crime. When they bagged the body and took it away, the lake went quiet again, smooth as glass, like it hadn't just given up the truth. I stood there until the trucks left, staring at the ripples spreading where my brother used to be. I could still smell the iron from the chains, still taste the salt of my own sweat. Leon put a hand on my shoulder, said, "Let it go, man, it's over." But I knew better. You don't chain someone to cinder blocks unless you got something to hide. This wasn't over, it was just beginning. That night, I couldn't sleep. The image of that skull floated behind my eyelids every time I closed them. I kept hearing Mama's voice saying, "Find him, Malik. Don't let them bury the truth." So I went digging. Found the old box of Devon's things the police returned back in the day, his wallet, his ring, his high school photo, but no necklace. Guess they forgot to mention that. The more I looked, the more I realized how many holes there were in that old story. Next morning, I went down to the station to ask questions, but the sheriff brushed me off. Said the state investigators would handle it. I knew what that meant, another 12 years of silence. So I started my own digging. I talked to people who'd known Devon, his teammates, his girl, his coach. I learned more in one afternoon than the cops had learned in a decade. That's when I first heard Coach Porter's name whispered again. Folks said he was a man of discipline. But I knew discipline when I saw it, and that man carried himself like someone who'd spent a lifetime covering sins with sermons about teamwork. He trained boys like Devon, molded them, maybe used them. People said he gambled on games, fixed scores, kept the money quiet. Devon must be found out, and maybe, just maybe, that's why he ended up at the bottom of Hollow Creek. Standing on that dock at sunset, watching the water turn the color of blood and gold, I made myself a promise. Whoever chained my brother, whoever thought time would keep them safe, they were about to find out what it feels like when silence breaks. The lake may have swallowed the truth, but I was the one who dragged it back up, and I wasn't letting it sink again. People in Hollow Creek like to say time heals everything. But that's a lie folks tell when they don't know what to do with someone else's pain. Time doesn't heal it, it just teaches you how to hide your scars better. When Devon disappeared in 1980, I was 22 and too old to cry, or at least that's what I told myself. But when they pulled his car out of the lake clean, keys still hanging from the ignition, radio still tuned to that soul station out of Jackson, something inside me cracked. The sheriff said it was suicide, simple as that. Said the boy had too much on his mind, college pressure, girls, maybe a broken heart. Folks nodded, murmured shame under their breath, then went back to mowing their lawns. That's how Hollow Creek handled tragedy, quick and quiet, like sweeping dust under a rug. Mama didn't buy it for a second. She sat by that window for weeks, hair wrapped up, eyes red from crying, whispering prayers like she was trying to trade words with God. "He didn't do that, Malik," she said one night, her voice shaking. "That boy was full of plans. You don't kill yourself when you redreaming." I told her I believed her, but truth was, I didn't know what to believe anymore. You want to trust the law, but around here, the law only works if you fit the picture they got in their heads. And a young black man who vanished after prom never made the front page. After the search ended, the town forgot him. His friends moved away. The school took down his photo from the trophy case, and his name stopped being spoken except in whispers. Mama kept his room the same, bed made tight, football jersey folded on the chair, the faint smell of his cologne still hanging in the air. I couldn't walk past that door without feeling my stomach twist. Sometimes, I'd stand there in the dark, hand on the doorknob, thinking if I just turned it, maybe I'd see him again grinning, calling me old man, teasing me about my busted car. But every time, all I got was silence. After a while, that silence turned into something mean. It ate at me, gnawed at the edges of my sleep. I started drinking more than I should picking up shifts at the lumber yard just to keep my hands busy. Nights were the worst, the air so thick you could almost hear the lake breathing in the distance. Mama never stopped believing. Every year, on the day he went missing, she'd light a candle on the porch and hum that same hymn she used to sing when we were little. She said it was to guide him home. I thought it was foolish, but I sat there with her anyway, holding her hand while the wax melted down to nothing. When she passed in '89, I buried her beside Daddy on the hill overlooking Hollow Creek. At the funeral, the preacher said she died of a weak heart. But I knew better. She died of waiting. That night, standing by her grave, I made her a promise. I told her I wouldn't stop looking for Devon until I brought him home one way or another. So every May 14th, I took my old rowboat out to the lake, the same one Daddy built from scrap wood back in the day. The paint had peeled, the oars creaked, but it floated same as me, barely holding together but refusing to sink. I'd bring a six-pack, my tackle box, and Devon's favorite cap. I'd cast a line where the police said they found his car, and I'd sit there until the sun dipped low, talking to him like he was just late coming home. Some folks called it crazy, others called it loyalty. I didn't care what they called it, it was the only thing that made me feel like I still had a purpose. There's something strange about that lake. Some mornings it looks calm, peaceful, but underneath it's dark, cold, bottomless. The locals say it used to be a plantation field before they flooded it to make a reservoir back in the 40s. My granddad used to tell me stories about how they never moved the graves before filling it, said the dead still linger down there, watching. Maybe that's why I kept coming back. Maybe I thought if I sat there long enough, the ghosts would take pity on me. Over the years, I watched the town change, new faces, new stores, but the same old rot underneath. The sheriff got older, slower, meaner. The school built a new gym and named it after some white politician who never set foot in Hollow Creek. They never put Devon's name on anything. Not a plaque, not a field, not even a mention at graduation. Like he never existed. That's what hurt the most, not the loss itself, but the forgetting. Black boys disappear all the time in towns like this. Folks sigh, shake their heads and move on. But I couldn't. I carried him with me in my chest, in my hands, in every breath I took by that lake. Sometimes at night, I'd dream he was calling me from under the water. Not in a scary way, just soft, patient. "You were close, brother," he'd say, his voice muffled by the current. I'd wake up sweating, heart pounding, staring at the ceiling fan turning slow above me. I'd tell myself it was just grief playing tricks, but deep down, I knew it wasn't over. The truth don't drown easy, it just waits for the right time to surface. People kept telling me to move on. Leon said I was wasting my life chasing shadows. Even Aunt Rose, tough as nails, told me you can't live in a grave, baby. Maybe they were right. But what kind of man would I be if I left my brother buried in a lie? I couldn't let the story end the way the sheriff wrote it. Devon deserved more than a rumor and a file collecting dust. He deserved peace, and so did Mama. By the time 1992 rolled around, I was 34, back stiff from years at the mill, skin tough from the sun. But my mind sharp as ever. I'd long stopped expecting miracles. That year, though, something pulled me back stronger than usual. The night before, I dreamt of Devon standing at the edge of the lake, moonlight on his face. He didn't say a word, just looked at me sad, patient, then pointed toward the water. When I woke, I knew where I needed to be. That morning, the fog hung low, turning the lake into a mirror of smoke. I rowed out slow, each pull echoing in the stillness. The water lapped against the hull like a heartbeat. I remember thinking how peaceful it looked, too peaceful, almost rehearsed. I cast my line, same as always, and waited. Maybe it was faith, maybe stubbornness, but I swear I felt something watching me that morning. Not evil, not kind, just tired. The kind of tired that comes from keeping secrets too long. When the line caught, I didn't understand what was happening at first. The pull was deep, heavy, like the lake itself had decided to grab hold. My hands burned on the reel, muscles straining, heart racing. Leon shouted behind me, but I barely heard him. I was somewhere between fear and hope, between this world and whatever lay beneath that water. And when the surface finally broke, when I saw the chains, the bones, that golden glinting in the sun, I understood. The lake hadn't been silent all those years. It had been waiting for me to listen. The morning the lake gave my brother back, the sun came up mean and red, like it was angry at what it had to see. Fog still clung to the water, thick as smoke, curling around the boat like it didn't want to let go. I'd been out there since dawn, hands numb from the chill, eyes on the horizon. The same way I'd done every year for over a decade. But that day, the air was different, quieter, heavier. Even the birds refused to sing. It felt like the whole world was holding its breath, waiting. Leon sat behind me, half asleep, his beer can sweating in the morning heat. You know, he mumbled, "This lake's gonna take you one day, same as it took him." I didn't answer. I just cast my line again, slow, deliberate, like prayer. The ripples spread wide, then disappeared. For a long time, there was nothing. Just water, light, and the sound of the old boat creaking. Then the line went stiff, not a tug, not a bite, but a full stop, like I'd hooked a ghost. I pulled once, nothing. Pulled again, harder, and something deep below pulled back. At first, I thought I'd snagged a stump or some old trash buried under the silt. The lake's full of it, rusted engines, tires, cans, the leftovers of people's sins. But this felt alive, heavy, breathing. I braced my feet, started reeling, every muscle burning. Leon sat up, cursing under his breath. "What the hell did you hook, man?" I didn't answer. The line cut into my palm, slick with sweat. The reel screamed. The boat rocked hard enough to make the water slap against the sides. Then, slow as a nightmare, something began to rise. It came up in pieces, first flashes of metal, thick links of chain slick with moss, glints of bone under the surface. Then the whole shape broke free, dripping lake water and mud. The smell hit first iron and rot and time. And then I saw the skull, tilted just so, like it was still trying to look at me. There were no eyes, but I felt them anyway, empty, waiting, accusing. The jaw hung loose, caught in a permanent cry. Around its neck, beneath the rust and grime, was a small gold chain, and hanging from it, a charm, the letter D. I couldn't breathe. My hands let go of the rod without meaning to, and it clattered to the bottom of the boat. Leon cursed loud, jumped back, his beer spilling across the planks. I just stared. 12 years I'd been coming to this lake, begging for a sign, and now here it was, not a sign, but proof. The water had been keeping its promise. I knew that necklace. Mama had given it to Devon for his 18th birthday. I remembered her saving tip money for weeks, saying, "A good boy deserves something gold." I remembered him laughing, saying he'd never take it off. And now, here it was still on him, after all this time. Leon gagged and leaned over the side, throwing up into the water. The sound barely reached me. I was somewhere else 12 years back, standing in our kitchen, watching my brother polish that same necklace with a smile too wide for his face. I could still hear his voice, "You don't worry, Malik, I ain't going nowhere." Lies. Not his fault, but still lies. By the time the deputies came, the sun was up high, burning off the fog, turning everything bright and cruel. Sheriff Danner stepped off his truck like a man walking into a church he didn't believe in. Same man who'd called it a suicide in 1980, same man who told Mama to stop making trouble. His hair was thinner now, his belly bigger, but his eyes hadn't changed, still that pale gray that never looked at you straight on. "Well," he said, spitting into the grass, "looks like the lake finally coughed him up. No, I'm sorry. No, you were right." Just that. They took photos, bagged the bones, taped off the dock like it mattered. Danner kept his questions short and sharp. "Why you out here today? How'd you know where to fish?" I told him the truth, that I came every year, same day, same spot. He wrote it down like he didn't believe me. "Funny thing," he said, "you fish 12 years and don't catch nothing. Then you pull up a body right on the anniversary. Kinda convenient, don't you think?" I looked him dead in the eye and said, "Ain't nothing convenient about 12 years of grief." He didn't like that. Told me to stay in town, said there'd be more questions. I said I wasn't going anywhere. My legs were shaking, my hands too, but I wasn't about to give him the satisfaction of seeing it. I watched them load that bag into the coroner's van, the chains clinking like ghost bells. For a second, I thought I saw the pendant glint again, a small flash of gold before the doors slammed shut. Then it was gone. That night, Hollow Creek felt different. The air hummed with talk. People who hadn't spoken to me in years came by the gas station to ask what I'd seen. Some offered prayers. Others just stared like I'd dragged the devil out the lake. The news spread fast: body found at Hollow Creek, possible murder. But no one said his name yet. They wouldn't until the state confirmed it, as if the truth needed permission. I didn't need a report to tell me who that was. I'd known since the line went tight. When I got home, I sat in the dark, the window open, the lake wind crawling in. The house smelled like dust and oil, the way old houses do when they've gone too long without laughter. On the table sat that box of Devon's things the police returned back in '80. I hadn't opened it in years. Inside was his wallet, his class ring, his watch, still frozen at 11:43 p.m. I ran my thumb over the cracked glass. I remembered fixing that watch for him once, the week before prom. He'd laughed and said, "Guess time's on my side now." I guess time had the last laugh. I tried to sleep but couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that skull rising through the water, saw the chain snaking around his ribs. Around midnight the phone rang. It was the sheriff. "We were sending the remains to Jackson for analysis," he said. "You'll be notified once we got confirmation." His tone was cold, procedural. Before he hung up, he added, "You might want to prepare yourself. Sometimes the dead don't tell you what you want to hear." I didn't answer. Just sat there, listening to the dial tone hum like a heartbeat. I thought about Mama again, how she used to say the lake had a soul, that it remembered everything thrown into it. Maybe that's why it waited. Maybe it wanted to make sure I was the one to find him. The next morning, the lake looked peaceful again, like nothing ever happened. Mist floating low, sunlight breaking through the trees. You'd never guess there was death hiding in its depths. I went back anyway, stood at the edge where the dock met the water. The boards creaked under my boots. For the first time I spoke out loud. "I found you, little brother," I said. "I found you." The wind picked up, gentle but certain, like an answer. Something shifted inside me then, not relief, not closure, just direction. For 12 years, I'd been stuck in the before, waiting for a sign. Now I had one. The lake had done its part. The rest was on me. Because whoever wrapped Devon in chains didn't just kill him, they thought they buried the truth with him. But the thing about truth is it don't stay buried forever. Sometimes it floats. They sent a detective from Jackson 3 days after the body came up, a woman named Elisa Monroe. Word traveled through town before her car even hit Main Street. Folks in Hollow Creek didn't like outsiders, especially ones wearing state badges and dark suits. They called her the city lady, said she talked too clean, and looked too sure of herself. When I first saw her, stepping out of that unmarked sedan, she had this calm about her, not soft, not cold, just steady, like someone who's seen too much and stopped being surprised by it. She was tall, skin the color of burnt caramel, hair pulled back tight, eyes sharp behind gold-rimmed glasses. I could tell right off she wasn't from around here. Her voice didn't drag like ours, it cut clean through the air. She came straight to me first. Sheriff Danner stood beside her, sweating through his uniform, pretending he still had control of the scene. "Me, Brown," she said, shaking my hand, firm grip. "I'm here about your brother." I nodded, couldn't find words. The sun was high, beating down on the lake, turning the water into sheets of glass. I understand you were the one who discovered the remains. She asked. That's right, I said. Danner stepped in before I could say more. He's been out here every year, he told her. Got some kind of ritual about it. His tone carried the kind of judgment you couldn't miss. Monroe gave him a look not sharp, but final, like she didn't need his opinion. Then she turned back to me. I'd like you to tell me exactly what happened, Mr. Brown. From the start. We sat on a picnic bench near the shore. She flipped open a small leather notebook. The kind that fits in a pocket but holds whole stories. I told her about that morning, the fog, the weight on the line, the chains, the necklace. I told her how long I'd been coming out here, how I never stopped believing he was down there. She didn't interrupt, just listened, nodding every so often, pen moving quick. When I finished, she closed the notebook and studied me. You've been waiting 12 years for this, she said quietly. That must be taken a toll. I shrugged. Some debts don't pay off easy. Danner cleared his throat. You think he's telling us everything, Detective? Monroe didn't even look at him. I think Mick Brown just pulled his brother's corpse out of a lake. Maybe let him breathe before you start poking holes. Danner turned red, muttered something, walked off. I liked her then, not because she believed me, but because she didn't treat me like a headline. Still, there was distance in her eyes, that professional kind that says she's cataloging every word, weighing truth against instinct. I couldn't blame her. Cops are taught to doubt first and trust later. She told me they'd sent the remains to the state lab in Jackson for not testing. It'll all take time, she said, but the necklace helps. Personal artifacts tell their own stories. I asked her if she believed it was murder. She paused. I believe no one chains themselves to cinder blocks, Mr. Brown. The question is who did and why. Then she asked if Devon had enemies. I almost laughed. He was 18. His biggest enemy was curfew. She didn't smile. People kill for smaller things. Over the next few days, she worked quiet but thorough. She interviewed everyone, the sheriff, old teammates, neighbors who barely remembered Devon's name. She didn't wear her badge on her belt like Danner. She kept it in her pocket, like she knew it meant different things to different people. Some of the white folks in town gave her polite smiles that didn't reach their eyes. The black ones gave her nods of respect and warning at the same time. Hollow Creek had seen too many badges and too few answers. I tried to stay out of her way, but she kept coming back with questions. She wanted to know what Devon had been like before he disappeared, who he talked to, where he went, what weighed on him. I told her about the girl, Serena Johnson, and about Coach Porter, how Devon looked up to him. When I mentioned the coach, she wrote his name down slow, underlined it once. You think he might have known something? She asked. He knew everything, I said. He was the kind of man folks trusted too much. That afternoon, she stopped by my house, a small place near the edge of town, paint peeling, screen door squeaking when you breathed on it. She looked around like she was reading the walls. You live here alone? She asked. Been that way a long time, I said. She nodded. Where's your mother? I told her she'd passed a few years back. I'm sorry, she said. And I believe she meant it. Then her eyes landed on the cardboard box sitting on the table, the one with Devon's things. May I? I hesitated, then nodded. She put on gloves, careful like she was handling something holy. She picked up the watch, the wallet, the class ring, studied each piece. No necklace, she murmured. No, I said. Police didn't give that back. She looked at me. You sure? Positive. That chain never left his neck until the lake took it. She left soon after, but I could tell her mind was already building something, lining up facts like dominoes. That night, I saw her car parked near the old football field, headlights off. She was talking to someone, Coach Porter himself. They stood under the bleachers, silhouettes against the sodium light. He laughed, she didn't. When she drove off, he stayed there a long time, watching her taillights fade. I didn't know what they'd said, but I knew that man didn't like being questioned. The next morning, Danner came knocking, 2 deputies flanking him like muscle. We were gonna need you to come down to the station, Malik, he said. Detective Monroe wants to clarify a few things. His tone made it sound like an order. I followed without a word. Inside the station, the air smelled like stale coffee and cheap cigars. Monroe was waiting in the interrogation room, arms crossed, face unreadable. "Have a seat," she said. "We just have to go over your statement." I sat. Danner leaned against the wall, smirking like he'd already solved it. She started slow, methodical. "You said you go fishing every year, same day, same spot. Why that exact location?" "Because that's where they found his car," I answered. "Where he was last seen." She scribbled something. "And you never caught anything before?" "Nothing but patience until..." Now she looked up. "You realize how unlikely that is?" I met her eyes. "I realize how unlikely it is that a kid drowns in chains." She didn't flinch, but I saw the corner of her mouth twitch, not amusement, respect maybe. After an hour of questions, she closed her notebook and told Danner to step outside. He didn't want to, but she gave him that look again, and he left. When it was just us, she said softly, "Off the record, I don't think you did this, Malik. But someone wants it to look that way. That's why I need you to be straight with me. No half-truths, no guesses." I nodded. "I want the same thing you do." "Good," she said, standing. "Then help me find who thought they could bury your brother twice." When I walked out of that station, the whole town seemed to be watching. Old men outside the diner stopped talking when I passed. Women on porches pulled their kids inside. It was the same look they'd given Mama after the sheriff called Devon's death a suicide, that mix of pity and fear. But I wasn't ashamed. For the first time in years, I felt the ground shifting, like the truth was finally stirring awake. That night, as thunder rolled over Hollow Creek, I sat on the porch with a cigarette and thought about Detective Monroe. I wondered how long she'd last in a place like this, where secrets ran deeper than blood and truth had to claw its way through mud to breathe. I didn't know then that she'd become the first person since Mama who believed me. I didn't know how much it would cost her to prove it. All I knew was that the lake had spoken, and now the law had finally come to listen. The next few days moved like thick molasses, slow and heavy. Hollow Creek buzzed with talk, but no one said anything out loud. Folks acted polite around me, tipping their hats, smiling tight, but their eyes said something else, curiosity mixed with suspicion. The sheriff's cruiser passed by my house twice a day, engine growling low like a warning. I didn't bother asking why. I'd seen this play before. When a black man found trouble, the town made sure the trouble stuck to him. But Detective Monroe didn't back off. Every morning, she'd show up at the station before sunrise, coffee in one hand, a stack of folders in the other. Word was she'd reopened the entire case, pulling boxes from storage that hadn't been touched since Reagan took office. I went down there once to see her. She was sitting in the records room, a small space that smelled of mildew and dust, papers piled high on the metal table. The air conditioner rattled overhead, fighting the Mississippi heat and losing. She looked up when I walked in, eyes tired but alive. "You shouldn't be here," she said. "Danner already thinks you rewatching me." I shrugged. "Let him think. He's been wrong before." She sighed, rubbed her temples, then gestured to the boxes. "You ever see anything like this?" Inside were folders so old the paper had turned yellow, stapled reports with half the ink faded. One was labeled Hollow Creek Missing Person Devon Brown, May 1980. I reached for it, but she slid it closer to her instead. "Read it all last night," she said. "Wanna guess how many pages are missing?" She flipped it open, showing me the gaps, numbered pages that skipped like a broken record. Interview transcripts missing, witness statements gone, evidence log incomplete. She tapped the last page. "The autopsy report says presumed drowning, no body recovered." "That's it, no notes, no follow-up." She looked at me, then her voice low. "This isn't sloppy police work. This is deliberate." I felt a cold anger crawl up my spine. "You saying they covered it up?" "I'm saying someone made sure no one could look too close," she replied. "And whoever did it had access, probably someone inside." She pulled another folder from the stack, a smaller one, marked Incident Reports, Hollow Creek High. Inside were names I half remembered from the old days, teachers, players, and one name that hit like a punch, Coach Randall Porter. Your brother's coach, she said. Looks like he gave a statement back then. She read it out loud, her voice flat. Devon was under pressure. Good kid, but emotional. Said he needed time alone. I told him to clear his head. She closed the file slowly. That's it, that's all he said. I laughed, a dry, bitter sound. Pressure. Devon didn't even know what pressure was. He lived for that field. Monroe nodded. I checked school records. Porter ran that team like a kingdom. Everyone answered to him. The principal called him the pride of Hollow Creek. She leaned forward. You ever see anything off about him? I hesitated. Memories I'd tried to bury started clawing their way back. The late practices that went past curfew, the closed-door meetings, the way Devon would come home quiet some nights, jaw tight, eyes haunted. Told her as much. He changed those last few months, I said. Used to be loud, always talking. Then he stopped. Wouldn't tell me what was wrong. Just said, Coach says it's handled. Monroe's pen stopped moving. Handled how? He didn't say. She wrote something down, then looked at me. You ever talked to Porter after your brother disappeared? Once, I said. At the funeral service the church held when the cops closed the case. He came up to Mama, told her how sorry he was. But he couldn't even look her in the eye. Monroe leaned back, thinking. I requested his employment file, she said. You know he left the high school 2 years after your brother's disappearance. I shook my head. Where'd he go? No record. The school said he resigned, moved out of state. But I checked the county payroll. Turns out, he stayed right here. Took a job at the community center, coaching the youth league. Different title, same man. She looked at me then, eyes sharp. What kind of person hides in plain sight for 12 years? Outside, thunder rumbled in the distance. The storm came fast, heavy rain beating against the windows. The lights flickered once, then steadied. She gathered the papers into neat piles. I'm taking these to Jackson tonight, she said. I'll need to cross-check financials, maybe subpoena some bank records. If your brother withdrew money before he died, I'll find it. I watched her pack the files, methodical, deliberate. You really think they'll let you dig that deep? I asked. She smiled faintly. They don't have to let me. I already started. That night, I couldn't sit still. The rain kept coming, hammering the tin roof, turning the dirt roads to rivers. I found myself driving aimlessly, headlights cutting through sheets of water. I ended up near the high school, old and half forgotten now, the bleachers rusted, the goalposts bent. The field was empty, but I could almost hear the echoes, Devon's laugh, the roar of the crowd, the whistle blowing. Then, from the corner of my eye, I saw a light still on in the equipment shed. I got out, boots sinking into mud, and peered through the crack in the door. Inside, someone was rummaging through boxes. When they turned, the light hit his face. Coach Porter. For a second, I thought about walking away. But 12 years of silence makes a man brave or foolish, maybe both. I stepped inside. He froze, his hand hovering over a cardboard box. Evening, Coach, I said. His face went pale, then hardened. Malik, he said, nodding like we'd run into each other at the grocery store. Didn't expect to see you here. I glanced at the box. Cleaning out old ghosts. Just inventory, he said. You'd be surprised what people leave behind. I took a step closer. Like a kid's body at the bottom of a lake, his jaw tightened. Careful what you accuse, son. Grief makes men say reckless things. For a long moment, we just stared at each other, the rain drumming hard against the roof. Then he smiled, that same tight-lipped grin he used to give the team before they ran laps. You want closure, I get that, he said. But digging up the past won't fix you. It'll just bury you next to him. I didn't answer. Just turned and walked out into the rain, heart pounding, his words following me like smoke. When I told Monroe about it the next morning, she didn't look surprised. He's nervous, she said. People get sloppy when they're scared. She held up a photo, a grainy copy of a ledger she'd pulled from the school's accounting files. Look here. Booster payments 1979 to 1980, big spikes before every major game. Guess who signed off? The name at the bottom, Randall Porter. What's that mean? I asked. It means your brother wasn't the only one keeping secrets, she said. But he might have been the only one who wanted to tell. I left the station that day with the rain finally clearing, the air thick and electric. The streets glistened under the afternoon sun, steam rising from the pavement. Kids rode bikes past the diner, and for a fleeting second, everything looked normal again. But I knew better. The truth was finally stirring, rising slow like something deep underwater. And once it surfaced, there'd be no putting it back. The storm passed, but Hollow Creek didn't breathe easier. The clouds hung low for days, gray and swollen, like the sky itself was waiting for bad news. Detective Monroe had gone back to Jackson for a couple nights to chase down records, leaving the town to stew in its own gossip. Every diner, every barbershop, every porch had a version of the story. Some said Devon ran with the wrong crowd. Others whispered about jealousy. About a girl. I kept my head down, but the whispers had weight. Truth always leaves crumbs even in lies. When Monroe came back, she brought more than files. She brought a name, Serena Johnson. I hadn't seen her since we were kids. She'd been a quiet thing back then, smart, polite, the kind of girl Mammas trusted. Her daddy, Reverend Charles Johnson, ran the biggest church in town, the kind with painted windows and a new Cadillac every year. Folks respected him like he walked on water, but I never liked the man. He had a smile too white, eyes too cold. Devon dated Serena their senior year secret at first, then not so secret. Everyone thought she was too good for him, but she never seemed to care. She'd show up at his games, cheering louder than anyone. I remember once she came by the house after dark, left a note on his car that just said "You re enough." After he disappeared, she left town with her family. Nobody saw her again. Monroe told me she tracked Serena down in Jackson, working as a nurse's aide. She agreed to talk, she said. "You should come with me." I wasn't sure that was a good idea. Too many ghosts in that conversation. But curiosity's a dangerous thing. It always wins, so I went. We met her at a small diner off Highway 20. The kind of place where the jukebox only plays blues and the waitress call you honey no matter who you are. Serena walked in wearing scrubs, hair tied up, a small gold cross hanging from her neck. Time had added years to her face, but not weariness. She still carried that quiet strength. Though I could see the nerves in her hands when she sat down. When her eyes met mine, something flickered, guilt maybe, or fear. "Malik," she said softly. "It's been a long time." I nodded. 12 years, I said. "Too long." Monroe let us talk first. Serena looked down at her coffee, steam curling around her face. "I heard they found him," she said. I prayed it wasn't true. I wanted to tell her it was better than not knowing, but the words felt like stones in my mouth. "You were the last person to see him alive, weren't you?" I asked. She nodded slowly. "We went to prom together that night. He drove me home after the dance. We sat in the car out front for a long time. He seemed off, not scared but heavy. Said he had something to fix before he could leave town." Monroe leaned forward. "Leave town?" Serena hesitated. "He wanted to go to college in Memphis. Said he was done with Hollow Creek. He kept saying, 'I gotta make things right first.' I didn't understand what he meant. He told me to stay out of it." Her voice trembled. "That was the last time I saw him." I studied her face, trying to find any sign of deceit, but all I saw was sorrow. "You never told the police that," I said. "They never asked," she replied, almost laughing, bitter and small. "They came by the house once, asked if I knew where he might be gone. My father answered for me, said we'd broken up, said Devon was troubled. After that, nobody came back." Monroe scribbled notes, eyes narrowing slightly. "Did your father know Devon well?" Serena stiffened. "He knew of him. He didn't approve. Thought Devon was beneath me. He said boys like him only brought shame." Her voice broke on the word. "When Devon died, Daddy called it God's will. We moved 2 months later. For a moment none of us spoke. The jukebox hummed low, some old B. King tune filling the silence. Then Serena whispered, "There's something else." She reached into her purse and pulled out a small envelope, yellowed with time. Inside was a folded note, the handwriting jagged but familiar. "Meet me by the lake after prom. Don't tell anyone. I need to explain." It was signed D. Monroe held it up to the light. "You kept this?" Serena nodded. I didn't know what it meant until I saw the news. He didn't write like that. He was scared. I stared at the paper, the words burning into me. Do you think someone else wrote it? Monroe asked. Serena's eyes filled with tears. I don't know. I just know he never made it home. On the drive back, rain started again, soft this time, tapping against the windshield like a slow heartbeat. Monroe kept her eyes on the road. That note's not a coincidence, she said. If Devon told her not to come, maybe he was meeting someone else that night. I turned toward her. Someone like Porter. She didn't answer, but the silence spoke plenty. When we reached Hollow Creek, she dropped me off at my house but didn't drive away. Malik, she said through the open window. I'm not supposed to say this, but your brother was in trouble. There's talk he might have been trying to expose something, maybe something connected to money. If that's true, we dealing with more than jealousy or rage. We talking motive. Her headlights cast long shadows across the yard, lighting the porch where Mama used to sit. I asked, you think he was killed because of what he knew? She met my eyes. I think somebody thought he was talking. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about Serena's face, the guilt in her voice, the way she said he was scared. I went digging through Devon's things again, searching for anything I might have missed. That's when I found the photograph tucked behind his yearbook, edges worn, colors fading. It was taken at the football field. Devon stood in his Letterman jacket, smiling arm around Serena, and right behind them, blurred but visible, was Coach Porter watching. His eyes weren't on the camera. They were on Devon. The next morning, I took the photo to Monroe. She looked at it for a long time, jaw tightening. He's in the background, she said. Did you ever wonder why he was at prom night? I shook my head. He wasn't a chaperone. Said he had team business. She sighed. Then maybe Devon wasn't the only one who went to the lake that night. From then on, the investigation changed shape. It wasn't just about a missing boy anymore, it was about what that boy knew. Monroe started digging into financial records, calling banks, chasing old paper trails. Every time she came back, she looked a little more tired, a little more sure. He withdrew $5,000 2 days before he vanished. She told me finally. Cash. No one knows where it went. She leaned across the table. Find out who he gave it to, and we will find who killed him. I thought of Serena again, of her father's sharp eyes, of Porter's smile in that photo. Hollow Creek was small, but its secrets were wide as the lake. I realized then that Devon hadn't drowned by accident, he'd been silenced. And if Monroe was right, the people who did it were still out there, still living free, still shaking hands at Sunday service. The lake had given me my brother's bones, but now it was giving me something colder, the truth, piece by piece, dragging itself up from the deep. And I knew one thing for sure, once it started rising, nothing in Hollow Creek would stay buried. Coach Randall Porter was the kind of man people in Hollow Creek called a pillar. He'd been there forever, running the team, giving speeches at church, shaking hands at every barbecue and county fair. He coached fathers and then coached their sons, and somehow he always looked exactly the same: clean white shirt, gold watch, voice full of sermons about discipline and God's plan. People said he built boys into men. But I'd seen the kind of men he built, the ones who smiled when he was around and drank hard when he wasn't. He was charm polished over rust. Detective Monroe didn't buy the act. She said men like him survive on reputation, not truth. When the mask cracks, she told me, they'll do anything to keep the light off what's underneath. She'd been digging into the school's booster accounts for weeks. What she found made the sheriff nervous. Money moved through that team like water, she said one night, spreading papers across the hood of her car. Cash deposits before every big game, sometimes thousands. Then withdrawals right after, no receipts, no notes, and Porter's signature on every form. She pointed to a column. Look here, May 10th, 1980. $5,000 out. Same day your brother took $5,000 from his bank. You see the math. It hit like a hammer. Devon hadn't been running from trouble, he'd been standing in front of it. Maybe he'd found out the coach was using players to fix scores. Maybe he'd tried to stop it. Either way, that money wasn't coincidence. He must be planned to give it back, I said quietly, or confront him. Monroe nodded. And Porter couldn't afford that conversation. We decided to pay the man a visit. Danner refused to come, said he didn't want to harass a respected citizen. So it was just me and Monroe, driving through the humid dusk toward Porter's big white house on Ridgeview Road. It sat behind a gate, wide porch, flag hanging perfect, everything manicured like it had never known dirt. His wife answered the door, a thin woman with polite eyes that looked everywhere but ours. "Coach is out back," she said softly, and you could hear fear hiding behind the manners. He was waiting by the grill, wearing an apron that said "One and Coach," holding tongues like a prop. Smoke curled around him. "Detective," he said, flashing that practiced smile. "And Mr. Brown, to what do I owe the pleasure?" Monroe's tone was calm, almost friendly. "We just wanted to ask a few questions, Coach, about some old records." Seems the school funds took a few creative turns back in 1980. His grin faltered just a little. "You digging up history, detective?" he asked. "I thought this was about that poor boy's remains." "It is," she said, eyes steady. "But money leaves fingerprints, and fingerprints tell stories." He laughed then, the kind of laugh meant to sound harmless but came out sharp. "You people don't quit, do you?" "The boy drowned. Tragic, sure, but that's all it was." I stepped closer. "Then why'd you leave town for 2 years after?" His jaw flexed. "Didn't leave, took a break. Folks need space after tragedy." I could feel Monroe watching both of us, her silence louder than any question. Porter turned to her again. "Detective, I'm sure you understand how gossip works in small towns. You stir the pot, you'll only make a mess." She smiled just slightly. "Sometimes a mess is the only way to clean something." He didn't like that. His eyes went cold. "You be careful, Miss Monroe," he said quietly. "You don't know how things work down here." She met him head on. "That's what I'm counting on." Then she thanked him for his time, shook his hand, and walked away. I followed, though every step felt like leaving unfinished business. When we got to the car, she said under her breath, "He's scared." "Didn't look it," I said. "That's what scared looks like when it's practiced." That night, she called me from her motel. "Malik," she said, voice low. I pulled the call logs from the school's office phone. There were 2 calls made to a pay phone near the lake on prom night. Both after midnight. Both from Porter's office line. I gripped the receiver so hard my knuckles etched. "You think he lured him out there?" "I think your brother thought he was meeting a friend," she said. "And instead, he met a secret too heavy to carry." The next morning, the town paper ran a story, Coach Porter cooperating fully with state investigation. There was even a photo of him shaking hands with Sheriff Danner, both smiling like politicians. Monroe saw it and cursed under her breath. "He's working the press," she said, "trying to build a shield." She called Jackson, requested a warrant for Porter's financial records. 2 days later, the courthouse faxed a response, a request denied, insufficient cause. She slammed the file shut. "They were protecting him," she said. "Money, reputation, all of it. You don't get rich in a poor town without making friends in high places." We met again that night by the lake. The water was still, the air thick with bugs and memories. She lit a cigarette, the ember glowing red in the dark. "You ever wonder why your brother went alone?" she asked. "If he was scared, why not tell someone?" I thought about it. He didn't want to drag Mama into it. Or me. That's who he was. She nodded slowly. He probably thought truth would save him. She flicked ash into the water. He didn't understand what kind of men he was up against. After she left, I sat there for a long time, staring at the black surface of the lake. The reflection of the moon rippled with every small breeze, and I swear it looked like it was breathing. I thought about Porter, how calm he'd seemed, how sure. I thought about the chains around Devon's body. That kind of fear doesn't come from panic. It comes from planning. Someone had time to make sure my brother stayed gone. A week passed, and Monroe came back with news that nearly stopped my heart. "We got a witness," she said, standing in my doorway, eyes bright with adrenaline. One of Porter's former players came forward. Said he overheard Porter arguing with Devon 2 days before prom. Something about keeping his mouth shut. She paused, watching my reaction. The boy was too scared to talk back then. He's older now, doesn't care anymore. I asked her where he was. Somewhere safe, she said. But his statement's on record. It's enough to shake the tree. And shake it did. The next day, someone broke into Monroe's motel room. Didn't steal anything, just turned her notes upside down. Papers scattered. A message scrawled on the mirror in soap, "Stop digging." She didn't flinch when she told me. "Fear means we were close," she said. "They wouldn't warn us if they weren't sweating." That night, as I drove home, I passed Porter's house again. The porch light was on, his silhouette sitting in a chair, motionless. For a second, I thought he was looking right at me. Maybe he was. Maybe he wanted me to know he still thought he was in control. But the thing about control is, it slips easy when the truth starts moving. And in Hollow Creek, truth was crawling up fast, like water seeping through cracks in the dam. I parked by the lake one last time that week, the same spot where the boat used to creak, and the air tasted like metal. I knelt down, touched the water, and whispered, "We were close, Dev. I can feel it." The breeze stirred, soft but sure, carrying the smell of rain and pine and smoke. Somewhere behind me, thunder rolled. The storm wasn't coming, it was already here. After that night by the lake, sleep came slow and shallow. The air in Hollow Creek carried weight now. Every sound seemed louder, every shadow stretched too long. Even the church bells on Sunday felt offbeat, like they knew what kind of sin still lingered in town. Detective Monroe worked in silence most days. But you could see it in her eyes, she was circling something big. The state had denied her warrants twice, but she kept digging. She'd show up at the mill where I worked, hair tied back, sleeves rolled up, a file folder under her arm. Asking questions between the hum of machines. "You ever hear your brother mention money?" she'd ask. "Anything about bets, or a deal gone bad?" I always said no, but the truth was, I'd never asked Devon much about his business. He was a kid. I thought his world began and ended with football. I never imagined there was money riding on every game he played. A week later, Monroe called me down to the station. The place felt smaller than usual, the walls closer. She shut the door behind us and laid a photo on the table. It was grainy, but clear enough, a check ledger with Porter's name scrawled across the bottom. Next to it was a slip from a pawn shop in Jackson, dated 2 days before Devon disappeared. "Look here," she said, tapping the paper. "That's a transfer of $5,000, cash from Porter to an unnamed third party. You know who picked it up?" I shook my head. She leaned back. "Your brother. Signed it himself," the shop owner confirmed. My chest went tight. Why would he take money from him? She looked at me like she'd already asked herself that 100 times. "I think Porter paid him to throw the championship game that spring. Devon was supposed to fumble on the last drive. But he didn't. He won the game instead and cost Porter and his buddies a small fortune. It felt like a punch to the ribs, so he paid him to lose, and when he didn't, he killed him." Monroe's voice was low. "Maybe not right away, but he definitely wanted it back." She slid another document forward, a withdrawal slip from Devon's bank, dated May 10th, 1980. He took the same amount out, probably to return it. Maybe he planned to meet Porter that night by the lake. I stared at the papers, the pieces clicking into place one by one, like a lock turning slow. "He wasn't running from guilt," I said quietly. "He was trying to make it right." She nodded. "And someone made sure he didn't get the chance." That afternoon, Monroe got a call from Jackson. When she hung up, her face looked carved in stone. "They matched the handwriting on that note Serena gave us," she said. "The one telling her to meet him by the lake. It's not Devon's." "Then who wrote it?" I asked. She took a deep breath. "It's a match to Porter's personnel file, his signature. He lured Devon out there himself." I wanted to tear something apart, scream, break the silence that had been choking us for 12 years. But all I could do was sit there, jaw clenched, the room spinning. "You can arrest him now," I said. "That's proof." Monroe shook her head. "Not yet, it's circumstantial. Without the chain, without eyewitnesses, they'll all say it's coincidence." I slammed my hand on the table. "Coincidence doesn't bury a boy in chains. She didn't argue. She just looked at me like she wished truth alone was enough to win wars. The next few days crawled. Porter acted like nothing had changed. He still ran his practices at the community center, still smiled for the newspaper, still waved at the sheriff like they shared secrets. Monroe told me to stay quiet, to trust the process. But patience never sat right with me. One night, I drove out near the high school again. The place looked smaller than I remembered, the field overgrown, paint peeling on the bleachers. I parked and sat there until the lights went out at the center across the street. Then I saw him, Porter, locking the doors, briefcase in hand. He walked to his car, checked over his shoulder, then tossed something into the dumpster. When he drove off, I waited a minute, then went to look. Inside, under a pile of trash and wet cardboard, was a torn ledger book, the spine cracked open, pages full of numbers. The first line read, Players Hollow Creek High 1979-1980. I brought it straight to Monroe. She read in silence, lips tightening with every page. These are payouts, she said. He was betting on every game, even the ones with kids. Look, your initials beside each number. D.B. Devon Brown. He was part of it, whether he knew or not. She turned another page and froze. And this, she whispered, pointing at a line scribbled near the bottom, debt settled May 14. My stomach dropped. That's the night he died. The next morning, Monroe drove to Jackson to file for another warrant. I waited by the lake, the place that had become my second skin. The sky hung low and bruised, the water still as glass. I thought about what my brother must have felt that night, maybe thinking he was fixing a mistake, maybe believing he could finally walk away clean. But men like Porter don't forgive, they bury. By the time Monroe returned, evening had fallen. She looked worn down, eyes red, but her voice was steady. The warrant's in. We search his office tomorrow morning. I nodded, but something in her face made me uneasy. What's wrong? I asked. She hesitated. Danner's stalling. He says Porter's a friend of the town. He wants to delay until the weekend. He's protecting him, I said. You know that. I do, she replied. But I'm not waiting for his permission. That night, she called me again, whispering over the phone. I need a witness when we go in. Someone the town say I planted evidence on you. That's you. I didn't even think twice. I'll be there. We met before dawn, fog thick enough to hide sin. Porter's office sat at the back of the community center, a small room that smelled of sweat and mildew. She jimmied the lock with something thin and metal, eyes darting down the hallway. Inside, the place looked too clean, too organized. A framed photo of the old team hung on the wall, Devon in the center, grin wide, Porter's hand on his shoulder. I felt my throat close. Monroe opened a desk drawer, rifled through manila folders. Look at this, she whispered. Inside was a stack of envelopes, each labeled with initials, each thick with cash. The last one was sealed, marked DB. My hand shook when I opened it. Inside wasn't money, it was a Polaroid. Devon standing by the lake, shirt half untucked, fear plain in his eyes. Behind him, half caught by the flash, Porter's face turned away. Monroe's breath caught. That's enough, she said. That's proof. She grabbed the photo, slipped it into an evidence bag. And just then the door behind us creaked open. Porter stood there, flashlight in hand, face pale and furious. You got no right, he said. Monroe straightened. I do now. He took a step forward, voice low. You don't know what you were doing, lady. That boy, he stopped himself, swallowed hard. You dig too deep, you were gonna drown like he did. I stepped between them. No, coach, I said. You already used up all your drowning. He left before things got worse, his threats echoing down the hallway. We drove the evidence straight to Jackson that night. Neither of us spoke for miles. The road stretched long and dark, trees bending overhead like they were listening. Finally, Monroe said, once this goes public, it's over for him. I looked out the window, the reflection of my brother's necklace glinting in memory. No, I said. It's just starting. The morning after we delivered that photo to Jackson, the world felt like it was holding its breath. The news hadn't broken yet, but you could feel it coming, that low hum before a storm finally splits the sky. I woke up early, couldn't sit still. The air smelled like copper and rain. Out my window, The trees swayed in a rhythm I'd known since childhood, that slow, uneasy dance Hollow Creek did whenever trouble was about to show its face. By the time I reached town, whispers had already started. Porter hadn't shown up to practice. Sheriff Danner was out sick. The paper office stayed shut with blinds drawn. Folks on the corner pretended not to stare when I passed, but their eyes followed me anyway. In towns like this, truth travels faster than fact. Monroe was at the diner, sitting alone with 2 coffees and a stack of notes. When she saw me, she gave a small nod. "It's in motion," she said quietly. "The lab verified the handwriting in the photo. It's him. They'll issue the warrant by sundown." I sat across from her, and for a second, neither of us spoke. The jukebox hummed something soft, Otis Redding maybe, and outside the sky was turning that strange yellow before a storm. "He won't wait to be arrested," I said. She nodded, eyes fixed on her coffee. "No, men like him never do. He'll run or he'll lash out." I asked what she planned to do. She smiled without humor. "I plan to stop him first." By late afternoon, thunder rolled across the hills. Monroe was at the courthouse, finishing the paperwork, while I waited near the lake, the only place that ever felt honest in this town. The water had gone dark, clouds crowding above like bruises. Every ripple looked like memory. I sat there for hours, watching the sky fold in on itself, until headlights cut through the fog. A car pulled up, Porter's black Bic, shining even in the dim light. He stepped out slow, coat flapping in the wind, and for a heartbeat it was like seeing a ghost walk. He looked older than before, face drawn tight, eyes hollow. "You just couldn't leave it alone, could you?" he said. His voice wasn't calm anymore, it cracked around the edges. 12 years, and you drag it all back up. You think that makes you a hero? I stood still. "I think it makes me a brother." He laughed short, broken. "You don't know what you're talking about. That boy wasn't innocent." His hand trembled as he lit a cigarette, the flame shaking in the wind. "He took money. He made deals. He wanted out, but it doesn't work like that." I felt the anger rise in me, but I kept my voice even. "So you killed him?" He took a long drag, blew smoke toward the lake. "He came at me, said he was going to the police. Said he'd tell everyone what I'd done. I tried to calm him down. He wouldn't listen. Things got out of hand. The wind howled, pushing rain sideways. Porter's voice dropped low. "You think I meant to? I built that boy. He was like a son to me." Stepped closer. "A son doesn't end up in chains." He looked away, eyes glistening, maybe from rain, maybe not. "It wasn't supposed to be like that," he said. "He fell. He hit his head on the rocks." I panicked. I didn't know what else to do. His words came out fast, desperate. The lake was deep, quiet. Nobody would find him. I just needed it to disappear. I felt sick, but I didn't move. The storm cracked open, thunder rolling across the water. "You let my mother die thinking her boy drowned himself," I said. "You let this whole town bury him twice." Porter's jaw clenched. "You think I didn't pay? I see his face every time I close my eyes." I stared at him. "Good. That means he's still haunting you." A car pulled up behind him then, tires crunching on gravel. Monroe stepped out, raincoat whipping in the wind, badge flashing under the lightning. "Randall Porter," she called, voice firm. "You under arrest for the murder of Devon Brown." Porter turned, his face gone white. "You can't," he said. "You don't understand. They were in on it, the sheriff, the boosters, all of them. You think this was just me?" His words tumbled out wild. "They made money off those games, detective. I was just keeping order." Monroe's hand went to her holster. "Put your hands where I can see them." He didn't move. "You will never clean this town," he said. "You will drown trying." Then, in one motion, he reached into his coat. I thought it was a gun, but it was something smaller, a silver flask. He unscrewed the cap with shaking hands. "You want confession?" he said. "Fine, you got it." He took a long drink, then dropped the flask into the mud. "I told him I'd fix it," he said, staring at the ground, but he kept shouting. "I hit him once, just once." He stopped moving. I thought if I chained him down, the lake would keep him quiet. "God forgive me." Monroe moved forward, cuffing him as he spoke. The rain poured harder, soaking everything, the badge, the cuffs, his trembling hands. He didn't fight. When she read him his rights, he just nodded, lips moving like he was praying. "You don't know what it cost me," he whispered. "You don't know what this town will do now." They put him in the back of the cruiser. I stood there, soaked through, staring at the water where my brother's body had once slept. The storm howled louder, bending the trees, but I didn't move. For 12 years, that lake had held its secret. Now it was finally empty. Later, back at the station, Monroe sat across from me, both of us wrapped in blankets, steam rising from the coffee cups in our hands. "It's over," she said. He confessed. "He'll spend the rest of his life paying for it." I wanted to believe her. "You heard what he said about others being involved," she sighed. "I did, and maybe one day we'll prove it. But for now, the man who killed your brother is behind bars. That's a start." Outside, dawn broke slow and gray. The rain had stopped, leaving everything washed clean but hollow. Hollow Creek woke up quiet that morning. No sirens, no whispers, just that uneasy silence of a town realizing its saints were sinners after all. They held the trial months later in Jackson. Porter pled guilty. No theatrics, no appeal. He didn't look at me once in court. When the judge read the sentence, life without parole, he just closed his eyes and nodded. I thought I'd feel relief, maybe peace. But all I felt was the weight of years collapsing in on themselves. Afterward, Roro and I walked out of the courthouse together. She lit a cigarette, offered me one, and for the first time in a long while, I took it. "You did good, Malik," she said. "You gave him back his name." I looked out toward the horizon, the sun breaking through thin clouds. "Names don't bring people back," I said. "But maybe they stop the forgetting." She smiled faintly. "That's all any of us can do." When I got home, I drove straight to the lake. The water was calm again, the reflection of the sky pure and wide. I stood there a long time, the wind soft against my face. "It's done, Dev," I said quietly. "They finally heard you." Somewhere far off, a loon cried, long and low, like the world answering back. For the first time, I didn't feel the pull to stay. The lake had given me everything it had left: truth, pain, and a piece of peace I didn't know I needed. As I turned to leave, the sun cut through the trees, lighting up the water in streaks of gold. For a moment, it looked almost holy. Then the light shifted, and it was just a lake again, still, endless, and silent. When the noise of the trial faded and the headlines turned to something else, Hollow Creek fell back into its old rhythm, the hum of cicadas. The low murmur from porches, the church bell marking hours no one counted anymore. But under that familiar sound was something new, a hollowness that had weight. People couldn't quite look each other in the eye. The lake still shimmered at sunset, but now it looked different, not peaceful, not haunted, just honest. The town's reflection on its surface was a little uglier, a little truer. I spent the first weeks after Porter's conviction fixing the house. I patched the porch steps, repainted the shutters, cleared Mama's old garden. It felt like work that didn't need thought, only hands. At night I'd sit on the porch with a beer, listening to the wind slide through the pines. For years, that sound had been a reminder of what I'd lost. Now it was something else, a kind of truce. The ghosts still came, but they didn't bite anymore. People started coming by, mostly quiet visits. Old teammates of Devon's dropped off photos, yellowed clippings, a few medals they said belongs to him. Some cried, some just nodded. Even Serena came back, holding a bouquet of wildflowers. We stood in the yard for a long time without talking. When she finally spoke, her voice trembled. "He would have wanted you to forgive him," she said. I told her there was nothing to forgive, not for him, anyway. She smiled through tears, left the flowers on the porch, and walked away before I could say anything more. Detective Monroe called every now and then from Jackson. She said the investigation into the betting ring was still unfolding, names surfacing like business owners, local officials, men who'd prayed loud on Sundays and cheated quiet every other day. Porter's confession had cracked open more than one door. "It'll take years," she told me, "but we're not stopping." I told her Hollow Creek wasn't built for quick change. "Maybe not," she said, "but rot's still rot, no matter how deep you bury it." I could hear traffic behind her, city noise, the sound of life still moving. For her, this was one case among many. For me, it was everything. When they gave Devon back what was left of him, the state sent a plain wooden box. No ceremony, no apology. Just paperwork and ashes. I drove it myself to the small cemetery on the hill above the lake, the same place where Mama rested. The ground was damp from the morning rain, the grass thick with clover. I set the box beside her headstone, the wind soft against my neck. The preacher said a few words, but I barely heard them. I was listening for something else, the faint echo of a boy's laugh, a voice carried by water. After everyone left, I stayed. The sun cut through the clouds, and the lake below shimmered like glass. I knelt down, pressing my palm against the cool earth. "You home now," I said. "No more waiting." Bird cried out overhead, and for a moment the air felt lighter. The wind picked up, bending the grass, whispering through the trees. I could almost hear Mama's hymn in it, the same one she used to hum when she thought no one was listening. For days afterward, I kept expecting something, a sign maybe, or some final release. But the world doesn't work like stories. There's no grand moment when the pain lifts and the light breaks clean. Grief just changes shape. It sits quieter, learns to live beside you. I went back to work at the mill. Same noise, same faces, though people treated me different now. Some with pity, some with respect. A few with guilt. The sheriff resigned not long after the trial. Rumor said he was offered a deal to keep his name out of the papers. Didn't matter to me. Hollow Creek had already written its own history. One evening, Monroe came down from Jackson. No badge this time, no files, just her. We sat on the porch watching the sunset turn the lake red and gold. "I don't usually come back after a case," she said. "But this one, it stuck." I nodded. "You ever get used to it, finding truth but never peace?" She thought for a moment. "No," she said, "but peace ain't the point. It's knowing the truth is out there now. That it's not buried anymore." She glanced toward the lake. "You planning to leave this place?" I looked at the horizon, the trees swaying like they were breathing. "Not yet. Someone's got to remember." Later, after she drove off, the quiet returned, that thick southern quiet filled with crickets, the smell of rain and wood smoke. I walked down to the dock one last time. The boards creaked under my boots, same as always. The water was calm, the reflection of the moon broken only by the smallest ripple. I pulled the gold D pendant from my pocket, cleaned, polished, catching the faintest glint of starlight. I turned it over in my hand, thumb tracing the edges. "You can rest now," I whispered, and dropped it into the water. It sank slow, spinning once before vanishing beneath the surface. For years, the lake had kept my brother's secret. Now it could keep his peace. The town moved on, or pretended to. New kids filled the high school, new faces coached the team. They put up a plaque by the field in memory of Devon Brown, 1962-1980. A son, a teammate, a truth too long lost. It wasn't much, but it was something. Every time I passed it, I'd stop for a second, touch the metal, and think about how long it took to get here. Justice doesn't fix what's broken, but it makes the world a little less crooked. Sometimes, when the evening light hits the lake just right, I swear I see movement, not ghosts. Just the shimmer of something free at last. And I realize that maybe this is what forgiveness looks like. Not forgetting, not letting go. Just understanding that some stories have to hurt to mean something. Life kept moving. The mill stayed loud, the seasons shifted. Kids played by the shore again, their laughter cutting through the air. No one told them the lake used to hold a secret. Maybe that's how it should be. Let them think the water's just water. The truth's still there, deep down, but it doesn't need to drag anyone else under. Sometimes on quiet nights, I hear thunder miles away and smell rain rolling in. And I think of that morning 12 years too late, when the lake finally gave my brother back. I think of Mama's faith, Monroe's courage, Devon's smile. I think about how some storms don't end, they just learn to whisper instead of roar. And when the wind moves across the water, soft and low, I whisper back, "I'm still here, little brother." I kept my promise. The world doesn't owe us peace, but sometimes it gives us moments like that, small, fleeting, honest. That's enough. The past will always live somewhere beneath the surface, quiet but alive, waiting for someone brave or stubborn enough to pull it up again. Maybe one day someone else will need to. But for now, the lake is calm, the town sleeps, and my brother finally rests beneath the same stars that once watched us grow. Some stories don't end when the killer's caught. They end when someone finally learns how to live with the truth. That's what Hollow Creek taught me. For years, I thought justice meant punishment, that if I could find the man who chained my brother and threw him into the dark, the pain would stop. But truth doesn't heal the way you think it will. It doesn't bring people back. It doesn't erase the nights you spent talking to ghosts. What it does, if you're lucky, is give the silence a name. It lets you stop asking why long enough to breathe again. I learned that grief isn't a straight road, it's a loop that pulls you back when you least expect it. You can think you've buried it, but one sound, one scent, one flash of memory can drag you right back to the start. I used to think my grief was weakness. The world teaches men like me that pain is something to swallow, that anger's the only language we're allowed to speak. But after all those years, I realized grief was the proof that love existed, that someone mattered enough to leave an H behind. The only thing crueler than grief is forgetting. And I wasn't about to forget my brother. This town tried to. That's the other lesson. Small places, especially ones carved out of the South, have long memories for comfort and short ones for shame. Hollow Creek loved its heroes and buried its sinners, sometimes in the same grave. People like Porter lasted so long because they looked like what the town wanted to believe in, a man with a whistle around his neck, a smile that preached order. But I learned that evil doesn't always come in the shape of monsters. Sometimes it wears a gold watch and says, "Yes, ma'am." Sometimes it hides behind sermons and trophies. Hollow Creek wasn't built on lies, it was built on the silence after the lies. The lesson is this: when you see rot, you either dig it out or you learn to breathe its smell forever. Detective Monroe taught me something else, something quieter, but just as hard, that courage isn't loud. It doesn't always look like a gunfight or a confession. Sometimes it's a woman walking into a town that doesn't want her there, holding nothing but a notebook in the belief that the truth is worth the risk. Watching her work made me understand how many people before us had tried to pull justice from the mud, only to be swallowed by it. She fought not just for me, not just for Devon, but for every forgotten name written in fading ink. The lesson she left behind is simple: you fight for the truth even when it doesn't change the ending, because it changes you. I also learned that forgiveness isn't about letting someone off the hook, it's about unhooking yourself from the weight of hate. I carried rage for years, sharp and heavy, like a blade I couldn't put down. It cut through everything I touched. But the night they sentenced Porter, when I saw him sitting there small, gray, broken, I felt something shift. I didn't forgive him to free him. I forgave him so my brother's memory could stop being chained to that darkness. You can't walk forward if you're still dragging the dead behind you. If there's a moral to all of it, it's this: truth is slow, but it never dies. It sinks deep, hides under years of lies and silence, but it waits. You can bury it in a lake, you can weigh it down with chains, you convince the world it's gone, but someday it rises. Maybe that's what keeps the world turning, to the stubbornness of truth, the refusal of memory to drown. Hollow Creek learned that lesson the hard way. When the truth finally surfaced, it cracked open the mask the town wore. It forced people to look at the things they'd let happen, the things they'd ignored because they were easier not to see. It reminded them that peace built on denial isn't peace at all, it's just quiet before the storm. And for me, for a black man raised in a place that never wanted to hear my voice, that truth meant something bigger. It meant that silence is a form of violence too. My brother didn't just die because of one man's greed. He died because a whole system decided he wasn't worth the full story. The cops closed the case early, the town turned away, and the years rolled on like nothing happened. That's how injustice breeds, not through hatred alone, but through indifference. So if there's another lesson, It's this: never mistake quiet for peace, and never mistake survival for justice. The world will try to convince you that both are the same. Don't let it. The older I get, the more I think about Mama. How she used to sit by the window, candle flickering, praying for her boy to come home. She believed faith could move mountains. And maybe she was right, it just took longer than she hoped. I think about how she said the lake had a soul, how it remembered everything thrown into it. I used to think that was just superstition. Now I know it's the truth. The world remembers. It may take years, decades even, but nothing stays hidden forever. The universe has its own justice, quiet and patient. That's what the lake taught me, that memory is its own kind of tide. So what do I carry now, after all this time? Not peace, not exactly, but something close, a steadiness. I learned that love doesn't end, it just changes form. My brother's gone, but he's everywhere, in the hum of the crickets, in the whistle of the wind over the water, in the heartbeat I hear when I close my eyes. The story doesn't end with his death. It ends with the promise that I will keep telling it, that I'll keep saying his name. Because as long as someone remembers, the story stays alive, and that's the only kind of immortality that matters. If you walk away from Hollow Creek with anything, let it be this: don't let fear make you forget. Don't let comfort make you blind. And don't let silence do your talking. The truth may break you for a while, but lies will rot you forever. And when the day comes that you standing by your own kind of lake, the one holding whatever you lost, listen close. The water will whisper back what it always whispered to me. What's buried in darkness always wants the light. That's the lesson. That's the story, and in its own strange, echoing way, that's the mercy too. If you enjoy stories that make you think twice before turning off the lights, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. There are still many things left unsaid, and we'll continue exploring them together.